They say time heals everything. But standing over the wreckage of a 20-year marriage, watching her beg for mercy, I finally understood, some wounds were never meant to heal. You want a long one? Buckle up, this is going to take us from late 2019 all the way to last week. Grab a snack. Seriously. You'll thank me later. So, quick setup. Sue, not her real name, I altered it, of course, was my high school sweetheart. We met at 17, sophomore nonsense and all that, and we never really stopped. We married at 22, had 2 boys not long after, and built a life together, the house, the routines, the late-night takeout runs, the stupid little rituals only couples share. I put in the hours, working hard, fixing things, building stuff around the house, the kind of stuff that makes a home feel like yours. 23 years. That's a long time to hand your heart to someone and expect them to treat it like it's their own. So when the first funny twinge of suspicion crept in, well, it felt like being punched in a place you didn't even know could hurt. Flashback, fall 2019 I blew out my ACL at work. Surgery, months of rehab, 5 months in a fog of ice packs and PT. For a guy who lives in the gym and practices martial arts, being glued to a couch is cruel. I had maybe half my range of motion back for a long time, and when you can't move the way you used to, a lot of the little household things stop happening. Tasks pile up. The yard looks like you forgot how to own a house. My sons helped where they could, but certain jobs are just dad jobs, the heavy stuff, the ladder stuff, and it all fell through the cracks. Sue picked up the slack, and she didn't love that. I don't blame her, resentment sneaks in when routines break. A month or two before March 2020, things between us had already been cooling. Sex slowed. The usual little touches, the hugs in the kitchen, the quick pecks before work, started to vanish. At first I blamed the surgery. I blamed pain and meds and depression. But then other things changed. Sue started spending more nights out with coworkers. At first it was the occasional after-work drink, no big deal. We had separate friends, and that had always been fine. But by January she was different. She became guarded about her phone in a way she never had been before. Things she used to show me, funny pins, recipes, silly memes, became private again. When I reached for her hand she sometimes flinched, like she'd forgotten it belonged to me. Then March hit. The city locked down. Both of our fields were essential, so we still went to work, but the rhythm of life had shifted. I'd just been cleared to go back to work and I was genuinely relieved. 5 months of rehab had made me itch to move, to feel normal again. But Sue's hours spiked. What I thought would be an extra day here or there quickly turned into daily late nights. She'd come home 3, sometimes 4 hours later, jump in the shower, eat with the kids for 15 minutes, and go to bed. When we did have sex, she was physically there but mentally halfway down Broadway. I could see it in the way she blanked out, in the way she moved like she was somewhere else. By early April the little dots were starting to connect for me. I could feel it in my bones. So I did what any paranoid, heartbroken person does, I started looking for signs. I read every "How to Spot Infidelity" article on the internet like it was homework. And, God, the boxes kept getting ticked. I dug into her social media first. A lot of happy family photos, the usual, right? But peppered through were pictures from nights out with coworkers. And in several shots there was this one guy. He was always close to her, arm over a shoulder, hand on a lower back, the kind of proximity that reads differently when you don't know the person. I tried not to overreact, but then I clicked the guy's profile and, weird, I was blocked. Me. Her husband. Blocked from seeing a stranger who kept appearing in her photos. I went full-on amateur detective mode. Our family cell plan keeps a trail of who calls who the most. From October 2019 to April 2020, the 2 numbers Sue texted most were mine, and another I didn't recognize. I googled that second number. It belonged to the guy from the photos. Let's call him P. For a while, their messages in the logs were fragments, deleted lines, gaps, which screamed concealment. Popped red flags everywhere, and I'd never felt more certain of anything. But certainty and proof are different things. I wanted the smoking gun, an unambiguous, undeniable yes. So I told my best friend what I'd found. He asked, "Did you confront her?" I said no. Not because I was weak, but because you don't confront without a plan. He told me about a tracking app, I'm not naming it here because that's not the point, and I installed it. I synced it to the family plan and let it run. Within days the world dropped out from under me. I found a string of texts between Sue and P where they were giddy about a night they'd had, laughing about how much fun it was and planning to do it again that weekend. I read those messages in a room that suddenly felt like it had no walls. It wasn't just flirting, it was affection, inside jokes, plans. The kind of back and forth that doesn't happen with coworkers at a holiday party. That moment, when the proof was finally there, that was my D-Day. It knocked the wind out of me. For 2 days I was a shell. I avoided her. She noticed, of course. She tried to ask what was wrong, she trembled when she reached out to touch me. I brushed her off. How do you look at the woman you spent half your life with and not see the person you thought you knew? How do you share a house, kids, a mortgage, and then feel like a stranger whose property has been borrowed without permission? By day 3 the sadness curdled into something hotter, anger. I called Oz, my oldest friend, and told him. He asked the obvious question, did I want to confront or destroy? Yeah, he put it bluntly. I told him I didn't want the meek sort of divorce where we sign papers and shuffle out looking tired. I wanted to dismantle what she built. I wanted to make things unpredictable. Somewhere in my reading about infidelity I'd come across a line, the enemy of betrayal is unpredictability. I latched onto that. If unpredictability was the weapon, I'd become a walking grenade. So I started playing a game. Not stupidly reckless, calculated. I kept the spying app active and let it catalog every message to a private server. I stopped scrolling through the romantic garbage. I was collecting evidence, not torturing myself. At the same time I changed my behavior in ways that made zero sense to anyone who didn't know what was happening. I started going out at odd hours, coming home later than she did, burying myself in my phone and then putting it away when she asked. When she asked where I'd been, I shrugged and said, just stuff, and I meant it in the most vague way possible. I locked down my accounts. For 23 years we had shared passwords and trust like it was currency. Then, around the time her affair likely started, she changed her Facebook and phone passwords, citing security breaches. Convenient, right? Suddenly the two of us who'd never kept secrets from each other were living parallel lives with locked doors. I told Oz. I told two of my oldest friends, Joey and Na, and my sister. These were people I trust with my life. They all swore secrecy. Oz has been my ride or die since we were kids. Joey and Na go way back too. I needed allies because I had plans that I knew would take time and precision. I didn't want to improvise revenge like some cartoon villain. I wanted to make her life destabilized in small, piercing ways, not to ruin the kids, not to get petty, but to make her feel the unpredictability she'd introduced into our marriage. By early June, the evidence was heavy. Their exchanges were not casual, they were full-blown relationship stuff, sexts, little intimate greetings, remember last night, texts. At that point I stopped reading every message in detail. The content was clear enough, the pattern was clear enough. I archived and cataloged everything and moved on to the next phase, the one where I alter the script of my own life so hers would have to adapt without warning. And that's where things get messy, because unpredictability isn't just a tactic, it's a life change. I started to behave like someone you can't predict. I'd go to places we never went. I'd pick up shifts at odd times. I'd do things that made her second guess whether she was still in control. None of it was violent, none of it was illegal. It was the slow, precise dismantling of a person's sense of normal. Right around then, I mentioned all of this to Oz and a few others, because you need witnesses and friends when you're about to pivot your whole life. One of the people I brought into the circle, Na, is going to be important later. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I had a feeling. And then, well, that's where I'll stop this part, because what came next changed everything in a way I didn't expect. You think you know revenge. You think you've planned for every outcome. You haven't. Wait until you hear what Na did, and how a single small lie turned into the spark that lit the whole thing up. July rolled in and suddenly my soon-to-be ex-wife went full paranoia. She started texting like she'd lost the ability to breathe without my permission. Are you going to be home? When will you be home? What are you doing? The little questions, the anxious commas of a person who's been put on hold. I could almost see the seed I'd planted the month before sprout in real time, every message, every call, a thin root poking up through the soil. The irony, and I'll never stop savoring it, was delicious. While she was whispering doubts to P, telling him how cold and distant I'd become, she was painting me as the villain in her own drama. She actually suggested they stop meeting at our house because she was terrified I might walk in on them. Imagine that, she was nervous about me walking in on her cheating in our own home. The audacity made me laugh out loud. Hard. Like a crazy person who just remembered his favorite joke. And it got better. In one exchange he asked her, dead serious, whether she thought I might be cheating on her. I nearly choked on my coffee. The thought of my cheating wife arguing with her affair partner over whether her husband could possibly be unfaithful, I mean, the cosmic levels of irony were so thick I couldn't breathe. I laughed until tears came, slapping my knee, the one I'd ruined years ago, and letting the sound fill the empty house. 2 minutes of hysterical, Joker-style laughter, because what else do you do when reality flips you the bird? For the record, when I left the house those nights I wasn't hooking up with anyone. Mostly I was crashing at Oz's or Joey's, watching fights, drinking cheap beer, eating takeout, swapping stupid stories with the guys, the kind of brotherly nonsense that stitches a man back together. Sometimes I'd hole up at my sister's place, where her husband treats me like the kid he never had. She knew about Sue's betrayal, I trusted her, but I didn't tell her about the plan. Some people can't keep a secret and I didn't want my exit strategy leaking. Fast forward to October, and things escalated. I'd been running my faux withdrawal script for about 3 months and Sue was hyper-aware I was pulling away. No hugs. No kisses. No initiation. Our intimacy had flatlined the day I flipped the switch on phase 1. She'd still sneak off to P's apartment or motels, she'd perfected the half-life of a marriage, but at home she fumbled for normal and I acted like a stranger. October 20th was the day she called me at work and asked me to come straight home. Not a rare request, but I'll admit I let myself hope for 2 seconds, maybe she'd finally spill it, maybe guilt would get the better of her. She had the chance to come clean and choose the right thing. She didn't. Instead, the conversation when I walked in was surreal. She asked, with this wounded, theatrical cadence, "Are you unhappy with me?" She rattled off the list. I've been away too much, I don't show affection, I've been distant, the same script she'd been writing to stay sympathetic to P. And then, like the worst possible joke, she asked if I was cheating on her. You ever laugh so hard it hurts? I did. I fell to the floor laughing, not the polite little chuckle, but full-bodied, ugly laughter. Tears, wheezing, the whole thing. She watched, trembling, and thought I was mocking her pain. Little did she know I was laughing at the perfect, obscene symmetry of the situation, the woman who'd been lying to me for months accusing me of the exact act she'd committed. After I'd calmed enough to sit up, I looked her dead in the eye for the first time in months. I didn't give her the satisfying answer she wanted. I got up, dusted my jeans off, kissed the top of her head like a man who once loved well, and settled in for the night like nothing had happened. Later, in my office, the curiosity flipped back on. I fired up the app and watched her type in real time. She texted P. I asked him tonight and he literally laughed in my face. He fell on the floor and laughed for like 5 minutes. She wrote that she felt lost, that I didn't care about her anymore, that she'd lost me. Reading that, watching her hand tremble on the keys in someone else's confidence, I grinned the kind of grin cats get in cartoons. The consolation P offered, that if I'd cared for her she wouldn't need him to give her what she wasn't getting, showed the exact sort of cowardice I'd been cataloging. She'd left our marriage because I couldn't perform a husband's role while I was healing. She'd kept that affair going for nearly a year, and yet the idea of losing me made her doubt. Weakness. Delicious weakness. While I was playing the long game emotionally, I was also quietly closing exits on the practical side. In September I met with a family lawyer to start divorce proceedings. New York is an at-fault state for divorce and the mountain of evidence I'd archived would make my case airtight. My attorney told me to pull my financials together, in plain English, get your ducks in a row. I didn't just get my ducks in a row. I scooped every dollar I could out of our joint account and moved it into mine without fanfare. I started looking at apartments. The exit wasn't going to be reactionary. It was going to be clean and surgical. Enter November. My behavior didn't cool, it ramped up. This is where Nina comes into play. Na and Sue have never seen eye to eye. Na, my oldest female friend, someone I met in freshman year of high school, has always made Sue uneasy. There was jealousy there, subtle and sour. Sue always tried to insert herself into our group, it made Na bristle. Na had been stuck overseas because of the pandemic and finally touched back down in New York on November 3rd. Haz, Joey, Na, Joey's wife and I decided to have a small, careful get-together at Joey's. 5 of us, CDC rules, takeout and laughter in measured doses. Na, who is about as subtle as a spark in a dry forest, had an idea I loved, make photos that echoed those 2 close shots of Sue and P, post them, and watch the claws come out. So we did. We took pictures, posed like idiots, posted them, and let the feed do the rest. It wasn't mean so much as theatrical, and it landed exactly where we wanted. By the 5th, Sue noticed. Friends started whispering. People commented. She saw me, being handsy, with Na in photos I'd only just posted, and suddenly the hamster in her head was sprinting. That night she confronted me about the pictures. She tried to shame me about being flirty with Na, like that was supposed to explain away everything. I had the perfect counterpunch waiting. Calm as anything I said, funny, remember all those photos of you and P? He was real handsy in them too. Did you ever think I'd get bent out of shape? I'd never mentioned P's name out loud until that moment. Watching her scramble, watching this woman try to stitch a lie into a defense, was intoxicating. She stammered, the usual, he's just friendly line, the it's not what it looks like excuse. But her face gave her away. She looked like someone who'd been caught playing with fire and suddenly remembered how flammable she was. From that night forward Sue's behavior flipped again. She went clingy, annoyingly, almost like a child who'd been found out. She tried to initiate affection and I stonewalled. Every attempt she made I deflected, like a practiced bouncer. Meanwhile, I kept archiving her messages to P. I was numb by then, any shred of wanting to fix our marriage had died the day I launched phase 1. I'd checked out emotionally, turned my grief into granite. So there I was, cash professionally moved, lawyer in the loop, apartment tours penciled in, a ring of quiet witnesses who knew the truth. I had weaponized unpredictability, and it was working, not to hurt the kids, not to be vengeful for the sake of cruelty, but to make her feel the same unmooring she'd given me. But just when I thought I'd mapped everything, when I thought the plan had only a few small things left to execute, that's when Na did something that changed the math entirely. I didn't see it coming. Not then. Not ever. And whatever she did next would force me to decide if I was still willing to play a slow, surgical game, or if I needed to light the fuse and watch the whole thing go up. Want to know what Na did? You won't believe it.by late November, Sue was unraveling. She started telling P that I was colder than ever, that she didn't know what to do, and that she felt like I absolutely hated her. She wasn't wrong. Then came the bombshell, she told him she couldn't keep seeing him. The guilt was choking her. She said karma was suffocating her, that she loved P deeply, but that she was still in love with me and couldn't risk losing her marriage. Too late for that, sweetheart. 8 months too late. P didn't take it well. He fired back desperate lines like, he doesn't love you the way I do. You're making a mistake. You can't just throw me away like this. That tantrum turned out to be the last real conversation between them, until about 3 weeks ago. Through November and December, Sue lived in limbo. She hovered around me, trying to read my mood, trying to guess if I really was cheating. P, meanwhile, was still blowing up her phone with messages, but she barely responded. I'd watch her glance down at the screen, then lock it quickly, like she couldn't bear to open the wound. By then, phase 2 of my plan was complete. Divorce papers, done. New studio apartment in Co-op City, signed with a 2-year lease. Every cent I had moved from our joint account into mine. The chessboard was set. It was time to swing the hammer. Thanksgiving came first. My oldest son and his girlfriend hosted, small group, just her parents, my youngest, Sue, and me. His girlfriend is in culinary school, and she put out a spread that could make you cry. I had to keep up appearances, so I played the doting husband. Cheek kisses, casual arm drapes, wrapping her in hugs. She soaked it up like it was the first sunlight of spring. Truth was, it was the first time I'd touched her since October, when she accused me of cheating and I laughed in her face. Almost 2 months without a touch, and here I was faking tenderness so nobody raised suspicions. On the drive home, my youngest asked to stay over with his big brother. That left Sue and me alone in the car. She turned to me, soft-voiced, and said, "Thank you for being so good to me. I don't know what you're going through, baby, but I'm here for you." I nearly burst out laughing again. Maniacal, floor-pounding laughter. But instead, I squeezed the steering wheel, took a breath, and said, I know. I just need time. That night, I let it happen. For the first time in months, I slept with her. It wasn't love. It wasn't tenderness. It was mechanical, the way you'd push a button and watch a machine work. And afterward? I didn't cuddle. Didn't hold her. I got up, showered, and went to my office. She lay there confused, probably even more so when she realized I'd used a condom. First time in 20 years. She didn't dare ask why. She already knew. The next morning, I checked the spy app. Sure enough, she'd broken her silence with P. And this kid, because let's be honest, at 27 he was barely 5 years older than our oldest son, poured his soul out in paragraphs. He told her she'd wasted 23 years of her life imprisoned with me, that she deserved passion, real love, freedom. He begged her to come back, to let him cherish her. And how did my 45-year-old wife respond? By telling him she loved him, yes, and cherished their time together, but she couldn't lose me. She told him I was still the love of her life, that he'd always have a place in her heart, but the physical part was done. Of course, he begged for one last meeting. And of course, she said yes. One for the road, right? Fine. I wasn't going to stop her. I had my own one for the road the night before. And everything, was catalogued in my growing archive. December 4th, Phase 3, the final act of Operation Shinobi Ghost, began. I had the divorce papers in hand. My new place was ready. Now came the hardest part, breaking it to my sons. That Friday night, I called them into my office. Just me, my boys, and the truth. I didn't tell them every filthy detail, I'm not that cruel, but I told them enough. That their mother had been unfaithful for over a year. That I was filing for divorce. My 17-year-old broke. He'd already had his heart shattered when his first girlfriend cheated on him 4 months earlier. Now he had to process that his mom, was capable of the same betrayal. My oldest was steadier. He put a hand on his brother's shoulder and said he could move in with him until things blew over. I agreed. We packed up some of his clothes, and before he left, he looked me in the eye and asked, "Are you going to be okay, Dad?" I smiled. A real one, for once. "Yes, son. I'm going to be all right. And so are you. I promise." With them gone, the hardest part was over. Now, it was time to arm the nukes. Day by day, Oz helped me sneak out the essentials. Sensitive files, irreplaceable stuff, things Sue would never notice missing until it was far too late. I swapped phones, got a new number, gave it only to the circle I trusted, my boys, my sister, my mom, Oz, Joey, and Na. Meanwhile, I spoon-fed Sue just enough affection to keep her blind. And behind the scenes? I was building the bomb. I printed every shred of evidence. Call logs, texts, screenshots, photos. I spent over $1,500 at Staples, paper, binders, ink, labels. 14 binders in total, each cataloged in order from the first text to the most recent betrayal. Each one gift-wrapped, each addressed to someone important, her parents, her siblings, her HR department, her friends, even P's parents. Everyone who mattered. Everyone who could see her for who she really was. December 16th, I lugged them all to the post office. ETA, December 22nd through the 24th. Right in time for Christmas. Perfect. Christmas Eve, she came home, same routine. Shower. Small talk. We had sex on the couch, yeah, I know, I'm a bastard, and then she went to bed, clueless. I stayed up, waited until the house was still, and then put my final gift on the bed, one binder, divorce papers taped inside, and a note that read Merry Christmas. Next to it, my old phone and my lawyer's business card. Then I packed 2 backpacks, enough to walk away from 23 years of my life, and left. That was a week ago. Since then, I've gone dark. Shadow. Ghost. Gone. And the fallout? Oh, it's glorious. The packages landed. Her family tore her apart. Her sisters called her disgusting. Her parents condemned her. My mother, who I always knew had a sharp streak, absolutely shredded her to pieces. Friends unfriended her. P's job is dangling by a thread because he works with her, and office policy bans relationships like theirs. They're both on administrative leave. By New Year's, she'll probably be unemployed. As for me? I don't feel guilty. Not even a flicker. I did right by her for 23 years. Gave her the home she wanted, the family she wanted, the life she claimed she dreamed of. I stayed faithful. I never once strayed. Every problem I brought to her openly, hoping to fix it together. And when I needed her most, when I was broken and healing, she crawled into another man's bed. So no, I don't feel sorry for her. She can burn for all I care. The only thing I stand to lose is a house, maybe a car, maybe some spare change in alimony. But in New York, adultery is grounds for at-fault divorce, and with the mountain of evidence I have, my lawyer says I'll be fine. Tomorrow, I'll see her again. Not as a husband. Not as a partner. But across the table, with her lawyer at her side and mine at mine. And that will be the last time I ever share oxygen with her. Because as far as I'm concerned, she's already dead to me. Christmas Day, 2020. My first full day in the new apartment. Bare walls, a couch that barely fit through the door, and the kind of silence that eats at you if you let it. But it was mine. My space. My reset button. I told myself I'd be here at least 2 years, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually building something for me. My boys came over, along with my oldest girlfriend. She brought homemade treats and cooked us a meal that smelled like the holidays were supposed to smell. My sister even showed up with a mountain of goodies and hugged her nephews for the first time in nearly a year. For a few precious hours, I wasn't a man crawling out of the wreckage of a 23-year marriage, I was just a dad, a brother, sitting with the people who mattered most. When they left around 8, I knew if I sat alone I'd drink myself numb. So I headed over to Joey's place, shared a couple drinks with him and his wife, laughed about old times, then went home to my new reality. But the next big shift didn't happen until a few days later. December 29th. I got a text from Nina asking if I was busy that night. I wasn't. So we met at a diner after work. Indoor dining was limited to 25% capacity thanks to the pandemic, but it wasn't hard to get a booth. Nobody was eating out much those days. We ordered, sat across from each other, and then she laid every card on the table. She told me she'd liked me since we were teenagers. Back before Sue ever came into the picture. She never got the chance to say it, because Sue swooped in first. For context, Nina and I go way back. I've known her longer than I knew Sue. She was part of my little high school misfit crew, me, Oz, Joey, and her. Back then, she was the heavyset goth chick with diabetes who the world overlooked, but who was always the coolest one in the room. The chemistry was always there. We just never crossed that line. Now, she's a personal trainer and yoga instructor. The ugly duckling who grew into a swan so radiant it makes you blink. And when she looked at me across that diner booth, I realized I'd been blind for years. Long story short, we agreed that once my divorce is finalized, we're going to start seeing each other. And yes, she came back to my place that night. No shame in saying it, we had a grand old time. And no, I don't regret it. Nina's been a better friend to me than Sue ever was. Through almost a quarter-century of knowing me, she put her own feelings on the shelf just to let me chase the life I thought I wanted with Sue. That kind of sacrifice, that kind of loyalty, that's love. Real love. And now, I finally get to return it. Then came yesterday, January 6th, 2021. The day I faced my wife and her lawyer. 2 weeks since I'd ghosted her. Her attorney had requested the meeting, so I sat down with my own lawyer beforehand, laid out my terms, uncontested divorce, grounds of marital neglect. Split the assets, sell my half of the house to her, we each keep our own vehicles, I keep the cabin in the Poconos. No spousal support. My youngest son free to choose who he lives with, which will almost certainly be me. When I walked into the office that morning dressed head to toe in black, Johnny Cash style, she looked broken. Pale, exhausted, barely holding herself together. Her lawyer floated some ridiculous offer for reconciliation. I shut it down before the words even finished leaving her mouth. In the end, we settled on a legal separation leading to an uncontested divorce. The one concession? I'll pay her $653 a month in temporary support for utilities until she's employed again, or for up to a year after the divorce is final. A small price to pay to be free. Especially since she got fired, along with P, for breaking company policy. They went down together. Poetic, really. 3 months, my lawyer said. By early April, if there are no hiccups, I'll be free. Walking out, she followed me onto the street. Midtown Manhattan, cold January air biting our faces. She asked if we could talk. I agreed. She held it together in that office, but outside? The dam broke. Tears streaming down her face as she begged for forgiveness. She admitted she never thought it would go so far, that she never meant to fall in love with P, that she only strayed because she thought I was unfaithful. She asked if, maybe one day, years from now, I could find it in my heart to try again. I told her to start imagining her life without me, because this would be the last time we ever spoke. I told her our son was nearly grown, that he could choose his own path. I reminded her that I gave her half my life, every ounce of my love, unconditionally, and she threw it away. I told her I loved who she was, but I hated who stood in front of me now. That if I never saw her again, it would be too soon. People walked by, side-eyeing the scene, but I didn't care. I'd already destroyed her socially and professionally. This wasn't about humiliation. This was about purging the last trace of affection I had left. I finished by telling her I didn't regret the 23 years we spent together. I regretted that, in the end, she chose the easy way out instead of fixing what was broken. And then, one last line, borrowed from a comment I saw right here on Reddit, for 23 years, I thought you were mine. Turns out, it was just my turn. I put in my earbuds, turned on my music, and walked away. Later that night, her father called me. The man I'd considered my father figure since my own dad passed. He apologized. He praised me for being a good husband, said he was ashamed of her, that he raised her better. That call hurt. Because I'll miss him. But I can't keep ties with her family, not after this. After that, I logged onto Facebook and symbolically changed my relationship status to divorced. Not legally final yet, but final enough for me. As always, when I post, people notice. My inbox blew up. I told the truth. Laid it all out. Nina called, shocked I'd already filed. She had no idea how far along I'd been. I asked her to come over. She did. We slept together again. But this time, she stayed. We lay in bed, talking into the early morning hours, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. Some will say I moved on too fast. But as far as I'm concerned, my marriage ended the day Sue climbed into another man's bed. That was the moment she ended us, not me. Now, my divorce is in motion. My future is wide open. And Nina? She's all I think about. She gets me in a way Sue never did. She always has. We're taking it slow, waiting until the divorce is official. But I'll say this, if you told me a year ago I'd be here, I wouldn't have believed you. Today, I can't imagine it any other way. As for Sue? She can move P into my old house for all I care. I'll be collecting my share of the buyout in installments, paying her that little stipend, and then I'll never have to see or hear from her again. She's my past. Nina is my future. And me? I'm finally free. Last night hit me with a punch I never expected. For those who don't know the backstory, my wife of 23 years cheated on me with a coworker half her age. I discovered it, spent months quietly building my case, and then I flipped the script on her. I let her believe I was having an affair too, while in the background I pulled my money, set up a new place, and collected every shred of proof. On Christmas Eve, I left her with a binder full of evidence, a divorce notice, and walked out. I ghosted her, detonated her world, and never looked back. Since then, her life has been in freefall. Family cut her off. Friends condemned her. She and her boy both lost their jobs. 2 weeks ago, we sat in front of lawyers and agreed to a separation that will lead to uncontested divorce. She begged for a second chance. I told her, for the last time, no. That brings us to last night. I was sitting in my apartment when one of our few remaining mutual friends called me on Messenger. She had gone to check on Sue, and found her unconscious, foaming at the mouth, with 2 empty pill bottles beside her. ICU. Critical, but stable. The doctors say she'll probably pull through. My friend pleaded with me to come to the hospital. Sue's parents and sisters were already there. I told her no. Sue stopped being my problem the day she decided a fling with a man 5 years older than our oldest son was worth destroying her family. She chose the easy way out, first by cheating, now by swallowing pills. If her family wants to help her, they can. But she is no longer my responsibility. This morning, my sons called me. They'd heard. I told them I already knew, and I told them if they want to support their mother, I won't hold it against them. She is still their mom. But for me? I'm done. My hands are washed clean. Now the news has spread, and suddenly all the people who abandoned her weeks ago are crawling back, telling me I need to be there for her. That I should show her compassion. That I should forgive. Even P, her affair partner, tried to visit her at the hospital, but he wasn't allowed in. And me? I'm being dogpiled as the cold ex-husband. Her father, though, he called me personally. He told me he respects my decision to stay away. That meant more than I can explain. But here's the thing. I feel nothing for this woman. Nothing. People call me heartless, a sociopath, whatever label makes them feel better. Maybe I am. But I spent half my life giving her every ounce of love, loyalty, and sacrifice. She threw it away, and then when the consequences hit, she reached for sympathy instead of accountability. And I can't pretend anymore. This morning, her father let me know she's been moved out of ICU to the mental health wing. She's conscious, barely. He told me she asked if I'd come. When he told her no, that I wasn't there, she shut down. I won't be reaching out. I won't be visiting. My obligation to her ended when I signed those separation papers. My only focus now is my sons, and making sure my youngest, who's already had his heart broken once, gets counseling to process this. His first session is scheduled for Monday. As for Sue, she made her choices. And now she can live, or not, with the weight of them. That's all I've got. I just needed to get it out. Last night closed the book on something I never thought I'd live through. I said before I'd never see Sue again, never speak to her again. But life has a twisted way of forcing moments on you. And believe it or not, it was Nina who convinced me. She told me the only way to truly let go of the contempt was to see Sue one last time, in her weakest state, and walk away clean. So at 6 p.m., I called her. The first time I'd spoken to her since Christmas Eve. Her voice was unrecognizable, hoarse, broken. When she heard me, she sobbed so hard it took 3 minutes before she could get a word out. I told her I'd come by around 8. She agreed. The drive from Co-op City back to the house that used to be mine was an hour and a half, and every mile felt like a countdown clock. When I pulled up around 7:47, she was already waiting at the door. And the sight of her? She looked like death. Thinner. Hollow. Not the healthy kind of weight loss, but the kind that says you've been feeding on guilt instead of food. She reached for a hug. I froze her cold. She backed off. We sat in the living room, and she spilled. She told me she couldn't carry the guilt anymore, that since the separation she'd spiraled into self-loathing that led her to her attempt. That if her friend hadn't checked on her, she'd be dead. She admitted she failed me, failed the boys. She admitted falling for P was wrong, that she should have pulled back when it crossed the line. She admitted she betrayed me in ways I didn't even know, sharing intimate details of our marriage, mocking me to him. And then, she apologized. She asked me, trembling, when did you stop caring? I didn't hesitate. The night you accused me of cheating, knowing damn well you'd already been screwing him for months. That was the night all respect drained out of me, replaced by the resolve to burn everything down. She told me that on Christmas morning, when she first saw the wrapped binder I left on my side of the bed, she felt a rush of happiness, until she opened it. Then she lost her mind. She said she hasn't set foot in that bedroom since. She told me she frantically tried to find me, only to go on Facebook and be shredded by friends and family. She had no clue how everyone knew so fast. So I told her. About the other binders. About the packages I'd sent to her parents, her siblings, her HR. Watching the shock on her face was, well, let's just say it was confirmation that she finally understood. Every door slamming shut around her wasn't random, it was me. She broke down after that. I excused myself to use the bathroom. The place was a wreck, mirror shattered, products scattered, tub filthy. It looked like her mind had detonated inside that room. When I came back, she was hunched forward, face in her hands, sobbing. And here's the thing, I felt nothing. No rage. No pity. Not even anger anymore. Just indifference. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And staring at her, that's all I had left. She looked up and whispered, I ruined us. I can't do this by myself. I told her she wasn't alone, she had her family, her friend, our sons. But she would never have me again. Not ever. I told her I only came to give her closure, and that once I walked out that door, it was for the last time. She mentioned P, said he'd reached out 2 days ago, that they spoke for hours, and she told him to move on, find someone else, forget she existed. That door was closed too. She apologized again. Asked me, is this really the end? I looked her dead in the eyes and said, it's been over for a long time. That was it. My cue. No more words could be said. I stood, left her on the couch, closed the door behind me, got in my car, and drove back to the only home I recognize now, my new one. It's nearly 3 in the morning as I write this. And for the first time, I don't feel anger, or fire, or vengeance. Just finality. The saga of Sue is over. Counseling is lined up for my youngest. Nina and I are still going strong, waiting quietly until the divorce is official. For the first time in years, I'm looking forward, not backward. I won't pretend I wish it never happened, I wouldn't change a thing. The only regret I have is not doing more to P than just costing him his job. But as for Sue? She's no longer a chapter in my life. She's just a closed book collecting dust somewhere else. This is probably the last time I'll post until the divorce is finalized. Maybe I'll return with one last update then. For now, I'm done. Time to build a future with someone who's been in the shadows for decades, quietly loving me the way I deserved. And this time, I won't miss it. The saga of Sue is finished. It's been just over 2 months since I served Sue the divorce papers, and a month since my last update, the one I swore would probably be my last. But life doesn't sit still, and a lot has happened. Coming back here and seeing hundreds of messages from people still following the saga, I figured I owed you all an update. Before I dive in, thank you. Truly. The support I've gotten here has been a lifeline, right alongside the support of my family. My son, 17. The first thing everyone's been asking about is my youngest. Just days after my last post, he started individual counseling. I went with him to his first 2 sessions, then he's been going solo twice a week ever since. It's helping, really helping, but the scars are deep. His trust in relationships has been shredded. Between catching his first girlfriend cheating on him last year and then seeing his mother blow up a 23-year marriage and attempt suicide, it's left marks I know will take decades to fully heal. I also learned his breakup was even worse than I realized. He actually caught his ex making out with one of his so-called friends, the kind of kid who only cozied up to him to get closer to her. He never told me that detail until therapy. My heart broke all over again. You do everything you can to protect your kids, but sometimes life swings harder than you ever could. The silver lining is he's decided to stick with counseling for the long haul. And I've made sure he knows he can come to me with anything, nothing is off the table. My counseling. I've started I See Myself. If you've read my earlier posts, you know I've been wrestling with a fire I didn't even realize I had in me. I've always been controlled, measured. But this whole ordeal woke up a dragon I didn't know was in there. My therapist has been blunt, told me I show sociopathic tendencies when provoked. He was half impressed, half horrified when I laid out the full extent of what I did to Sue. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by his reaction. My sessions aren't explosive, they're more about sorting and organizing the chaos in my head, unpacking everything that happened, and trying to find balance moving forward. Nina. Now for the part of the story that doesn't feel like wreckage, Nina. I don't even know where to start. I have no idea where I'd be without her. She's been the calm in the middle of this storm, caring, empathetic, nurturing in a way I didn't know I needed. We've been trying to keep our relationship under wraps until the divorce is finalized, but truth be told, within our group of friends, the secret's out. She just gets me. She always has. Since we were kids. Since before Sue ever came into the picture. She knows what betrayal feels like too, and she does everything she can to help me navigate mine. We split our time between my place and hers. Moving in together has been brought up, but her 5-year-old puts the brakes on that for now. My apartment's too small for 3, and I'm locked into my lease until 2022 anyway. For now, when her daughter's with her dad, Nina stays with me. When she has her daughter, I stay with them. And speaking of her daughter, she's a light. I adore that kid, and she's taken a shine to me too. Watching Nina as a mother only makes me respect her more. She's loved me quietly since we were sophomores in high school. Held on to that secret for over 25 years, even stepping back to let me build a life with Sue. That kind of sacrifice, that kind of loyalty, it's humbling. Now we talk about the future a lot. Marriage? Neither of us wants to walk that road again, but we've talked about a civil union down the line. What matters is we've decided, we're it for each other. Sue. And then there's Sue. Or rather, there isn't. After the last time I saw her, after her suicide attempt and the conversation where I told her flat out that we were done, I went completely no contact. I don't know how she's doing. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, she's dead to me. Where things stand. So here I am, March 2nd, typing this out. 1 more month until the paperwork goes through and I'm officially free. Counting down the days. Life goes on. I've got counseling, my boys, my sister, Nina, and a future I'm finally looking forward to. The past? That book is closed. And to all of you who've been here, who've read, who've offered encouragement and perspective, you have my gratitude. More than I can put into words. April 13th. The day the chapter officially closed. I'd been told by my lawyer that the finalization would happen on the 18th, but thanks to New York easing restrictions as COVID cases dropped, the paperwork went through early. On the 12th, Jeff, my lawyer, called me into his office. He handed me the divorce finalization notice, shook my hand, and just like that, it was done. I couldn't just leave it at that. I hugged him, thanked him for everything, and walked out into a world that suddenly felt bigger than it had in years. On the way home, all the memories hit me. 24 years of life, love, betrayal, and survival playing on a loop in my head. When I stepped into my apartment, my knees gave out. I hit the floor and cried harder than I had in decades. Not out of grief, but out of release. My soul felt like it had been dragged out of a cave and finally saw daylight again. That night, I called 22. Told him, short and sweet, it's finalized. His mother and I are no longer married. He asked how I felt. He could probably hear in my voice that I'd been crying. I told him I was fine. Then 17 got on the line, and we spoke for nearly an hour and a half. He's still in therapy, still carrying scars, but he's healing. Slowly, but healing. Later that evening, Nina came over. She wrapped her arms around me and let me cry all over again. When I finally composed myself, she looked me in the eye and told me she would never betray me. That she loves me with all her heart. And I believed every word. Looking back now, I can say it plain, I chose the wrong woman the first time. I don't regret the life I built with Sue. She gave me 2 strong sons, but Nina is my hero. In 4.5 months, she's given me more love, more loyalty, more unconditional support than I'd had in decades. And then came the twist I never saw coming. Him, actually reached out to me. Sent me a message right here on Reddit. Turns out, he saw my story when it blew up on YouTube and instantly recognized it. No, I won't reveal his username, I think the kid suffered enough. He started with an apology. Told me everything I already knew. His mother disowned him after reading the binder I sent. His devout Catholic upbringing left no room for forgiveness. She kicked him out. Within a week, his job was gone too. Fired. He's been couch hopping, trying to scrape together a life ever since. He admitted he'd wanted to reach out before, but he was afraid. His exact words? If you were able to find me before, you could find me again. I asked when he last spoke to Sue. He told me months ago, and that she'd told him to move on, find someone younger, and forget her. At least she wasn't lying to me about that. The conversation went on for about 20 minutes. He was surprisingly forthcoming, almost like he wanted confession to give him peace. Finally, he apologized again. That's when I gave him this. You're a 27-year-old man who now has to live the rest of your life knowing your own mother loathes you for breaking up a marriage nearly as long as you've been alive. You messaged me because karma is eating at you, but I won't give you closure. When I was 27, I was building a legacy. Right now, you're a homeless, jobless homewrecker. If you're smart, you'll learn from this lesson. If you're not, you'll stay a screw-up until you're my age, assuming you make it that far. I'd wish you luck, but you don't need luck. You need to get your life in order. Then I blocked him. That was all the closure he was going to get. But life has a funny way of pivoting. On May 4th, 2021, Nina became my wife. Yeah. I know. Some will say it's too soon. Some will say I swore I'd never get married again. And both are true. But when someone has stood in the shadows for 25 years, quietly loving you, quietly rooting for you, and then finally steps into the light, you don't turn that away. Nina made it clear she only wants me. She wants my name. She wants me to adopt her daughter, Anna, as my own. And Anna? She's 6 now. She idolizes me. Calls me her superhero. She never had a father figure who stayed. The fact that I'm here, steady and committed, means everything to her. And to me. Watching 17 and Anna together, like big brother and little sister, has been healing in a way I can't explain. My therapist even said it's a good sign. 17 sees innocence in Anna, something worth protecting, even though his own innocence was shattered. So we went to City Hall. Got the license. Signed the papers. And just like that, I was married again. The reveal to family and friends? Hilarious. Everyone claimed they already knew. Big Sis even started placing bets on when the now expecting post would show up. This time, though, it feels different. It feels right. Nina has given me more love in months than Sue gave me in decades. She never once asked for anything but my presence, my honesty, and my loyalty. She's my partner. My equal. My future. As for Sue? I haven't spoken to her since my final visit months ago. Mutual friends still slip me updates sometimes, but I've told them I don't want them. Last I heard, she sold the house, got a small apartment near her new clerical job, and is barely functioning. Keeps to herself. A shell of who she was. But she's no longer my concern. And that's it. That's the end of this saga: betrayal, revenge, suicide attempt, divorce, and rebirth. I'm closing this chapter, finally. To everyone who followed this story, who gave me advice, encouragement, or just a place to vent, thank you. Truly. I never expected to find so much light in a dark place like Reddit. But now? I'm fading back into the swamp. Living with my new frog wife and our little tadpole. And for the first time in decades, I feel at peace. Keep it green, Reddit. Keep it classy. The end.